Welcome to the TimCo Retail Manager course. This course focuses on real-world application development. In this video, we're going to be tracking down a couple of bugs and improving the process on how other things work. Now, Patreon members, don't forget to head over to my Patreon site to get the source code. And also notice that this month, there's a special bonus for members at the $10 per month level or higher. The behind-the-scenes video of how I make YouTube videos should be out shortly as well. Now, as we move forward in this video, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please let me know what you want to see differently or done differently or maybe improved in this application. All of today's changes have come directly from you, the viewers. Even if you don't have anything to tweak, at least hitting that thumbs up would really be appreciated. Okay, so let's jump right into our code. Now, I'm going to start by hitting the Run button, the Start button. I want to show you a bug that has come up. And this comes from missing something fairly significant, but at the same time easy to miss. So let's log into our application, and once the API loads, it will run. And let's say I want to add 10 skillets. So I have 10 skillets, I want to add 10 of them, which there's 10 in stock. So let's add that to the cart. I can do that. Great. Now I have 10 skillets in stock. Notice I can't remove them from the cart. If I add one fluffy bath towel, I can remove that, but I can't remove the skillets. That's kind of a problem. Okay, so that's a problem we're going to fix today. And it's actually a simple one, but it's one that can be easily overlooked. And in fact, I overlooked it when I was developing this. So the first question that comes up is, how do we identify where this bug is? Now, I know where the bug is because we've been talking. In fact, some of you pointed out to me and said, hey, here's the bug, and here's how to fix it, which is great. I appreciate it. But let's talk through, what if I didn't know where this bug is? Well, I have over here selected an item. And it should be that since I have something selected, this Remove from Cart button should light up. In fact, if I select fluffy bath towels, it does. So why is it that selecting this does not light this up? Well, that has to do with the Can Remove from Cart method, because that's what determines whether that button is enabled or disabled. So I know immediately where to start looking, the Can Remove from Cart. So let's go over here, and we're going to open up the UI and go to our view model for the sales view model. That's the form we were on. And let's look for the Can Remove from Cart. And in here, we have our check to see if we can remove it from the cart. We start off at false, meaning we cannot remove it from the cart. And then we make sure something is selected. Well, we know that something was selected. So as long as it is, in fact, populating this with a value, it won't be null. And selected cart item, product, quantity in stock is greater than 0. Do you see the problem with that? Maybe not first, because I didn't see it at first. But it'll become apparent really quickly if we were to run this application and recreate what we just did. So we're going to log in. Once we log in, we can skip over it for now because we haven't actually changed anything yet. Let's add something to the cart. Now we're going to select a 10-inch skillet. Let's look at our values here. So we're going to look at our locals. And right now under this, we should have a selected cart item. Selected cart item. And notice that it has something in it. In fact, it's the 10-inch skillet. Quantity in cart is 10. So we have something that's not null. So that first part of the check passes. Now, selected cart item, which that's what we have right here. Product, if it's not null, so product, yep, that's not null as well. Quantity in stock, 0. Well, we're checking to see if quantity in stock is greater than 0. So why is this failing? Well, because it's checking the quantity in stock. But that's not what we're doing in the cart side. We're doing that in the other side, let me pull it up real quick. I can't get into debugging. Let's go to our Solution Explorer and look at the actual view. Of course, it's going to show me doesn't want to show me the UI. Now we can see the UI. So over here in the items, we can't add something to the cart if there's no more in stock. That makes sense. But removing something from the cart, it doesn't make sense to check whether or not it's in stock. Because in fact, we're returning one to the stock. Therefore, we're checking the wrong value here. And this comes from copying and pasting. This is not the right thing to check. Instead, what we need to check is not the quantity in stock, because we're adding one to that down here. Instead, what we need to do is we need to check the quantity in cart. So instead of this right here, we need to say the quantity in cart. How many are in the cart? So if you select something, if it's not null, and the quantity in the cart is greater than 0, which it always should be, because otherwise it shouldn't even be in that list. But this is our debugging just to be sure check. So as long as the quantity is greater than 0, then you can remove one from the cart. Let's try this instead. So once this loads up, we'll log in and we'll try it again. Do our same steps, add 10 to the cart, select it, and now we can remove one from the cart. Remember that remove just removes one. And notice it says quantity of 1 over here, it says quantity of 9 over here. That's great. But we still have a bug in that skillet, 10-inch skillet over here is selected, but we cannot add it to the cart, even though there is one in stock still. We can remove one, but we can't add one. Now, if we were to add something else or select something else, notice now I can add to the cart. So what's the problem there? Well, the problem there is we're not refreshing this and saying, hey, update the can add to cart when we remove one from the cart. So we found another bug. And that's one of the things you're going to find out is when you start hunting down bugs, you may fix something, but it looks like you didn't because there's now another bug. And the temptation is to say, my first fix didn't work. But be careful, because if your fix may be working, it may just be that you have another 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 bugs down the road to then fix. So make sure that you're not throwing away good fixes because it appears there's another bug. Okay? There may be multiple bugs to fix. Now in this case, we need to look for the remove from cart method, which is right here. And when we remove something from the cart, we need to trigger the can add to cart. So let's just do this. Let's add our notify property change for can add to cart. That's going to trigger that to say, hey, check to see if you can add to cart now, because it may have changed. And that's what notify property change does for us. So let's run this again. And we'll log in. We'll recreate our exact same steps. So we're going to add 10 to the cart. We're going to remove 1. And now notice we can add that 10th one back. There we go. So now you can remove 2, 1, and it's all gone from this cart list. So we've now tested to make sure that this works. And this is where testing your application is crucial, because I just tested the happy path. The idea of, oh, we add one to the cart, we add one to the cart, we add a second one to the cart, we remove one from the cart, it all works. That's called the happy path. The idea that people are using it the way we expect them to, and they're not touching on any of the edge cases. But what you need to test for is all of those edge cases. The cases where, like in our case here, someone took the rest of the quantity. Make sure that we can remove from the cart still. Make sure we can't add more to the cart after quantity is 0. All those types of things. Bath towels. Can I put 20 here and add to cart? No, I can't, because there's only 19 in stock. So testing those edge cases to make sure that in fact this stuff works. Now notice I can add 20 now. So with all those edge cases tested, that's when you know your application is going to function, hopefully without bugs or with less bugs. But just testing that happy path is not nearly enough to say your application is done. Okay? Now let's go ahead and stop this. And the next, I probably should have kept that going. Let's start back up. I want to show you the next thing. It's not a bug, but it's something that we need to take care of. When I hit login and then I add something to the cart, let's just add 2 things to the cart and I say check out. If I do this, it appears as though nothing happens. And that's because we don't have any action after the checkout completes. So if we go and look at this method, let's look at the checkout. There's can checkout, and then there's checkout. Okay, so this is an async method that's going to post our sale. It's going to wait for that. And as long as that is successful, it doesn't return anything, but as long as it's successful, then we should do something to our form. Right now we stop right there. So you post it, but then we still have stuff in the cart. We haven't updated the quantities. We haven't closed this page down or refreshed it or anything. And so we need to think through, what do you want to do to this page now that we're done? Okay? And I think the answer here is maybe for now, we have a couple different options. One, we could reset this page back to what it was for the next customer. Or we could close the page down and allow them to open it back up. Closing it down and allowing them to open it back up is actually the safer thing to do because we're sure that we're getting rid of all of our temp variables. Anything that would be hanging on from the last person to use this or the last transaction. However, it would seem like if we're using this page as a rudimentary cash register system or a rudimentary point of sale system, then we're not going to have one sale and then be done. It would seem like we'll have one sale and then the next and then the next in order like that. So I think what we need to do is we need to reset this page back to start, back to where it was when we first came in. So let's work on that. Let's start by looking at what this page does when we start. So our constructor, which is right here, loads in these 4 things that come from our dependency injection system. That's all it does. But then we have this method here called onViewLoaded, which is where once the view is actually loaded, then we do something. In this case, we load products. Now inside of load products, we get all the products and then we map them over to our product list, our product display model list, and we put that into our products. So that resets this view right here, this list right here of items. What it doesn't reset is the quantity. It doesn't reset the cart either. So I think we need to make sure we explicitly do that on load. So right now we have the cart and we have the selected cart item and we have the cart itself. And right now both of these are initialized when the model is first initialized. So right here. I think what we need to do is move this or do this again whenever we reset the cart. And so let's create a private method we can call to reset the cart, which will do some of these things that we do on startup over again. That way we're sure we're clearing out everything and we have one central place where everything gets done. So let's just put it right here for now because this is where a couple of our things are. So private void reset page, reset sales view, reset sales view, I think is probably best. Reset sales view model. How about that? That way it's very clear what it's doing. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to clear out this cart value. So let's copy this and paste it in there. That way there's nothing in the cart anymore, which should take care of the selected cart item because we've now changed the cart. But just to be sure, here's what we're going to do. We're going to watch it, and we're going to put it to do here. Add clearing the selected cart item if it does not do it itself. Okay, so we're going to watch to see if it's going to clear that value out, but if not, we can do it manually. So we got to do in there to check for that. So we're clearing the cart out. Everything else is operated based upon this load products, which load products we can actually call directly. So let's do that. We need to make this async task instead of void. And we can await load products, like so. And now it's going to load up those products again, and it's going to reset the products list, which is that items list on the left. It's going to reset that with the new values from the database, which means that once we start updating the database, the inventory numbers, because right now they're kind of just fudged inventory numbers, but once you start updating those, then this call will get the new values based upon the previous sale. That way there's no guessing on our part, where right now we say we have 10 skillets in stock and we say we have 9 once you move one to the cart. But once they hit buy, it will check to make sure there's 9 in stock again. That way, let's just say a new shipment came in. Between this sale and the next, we know we now have 19, not 9. Or maybe we missed one somewhere, or one got lost or sold somewhere else, and now there's 8, and it will get that new value. So this reset sales view model, this should be done when we make a purchase. So it's down here somewhere in the checkout method. Can check out and check out. There we go. You can also just search up here in this list. It's alphabetized, but I found it. So now that we've posted the sale, what we're going to do is we're going to await the reset sales view model. And what that will do is it will reset our cart for us once we've completed the sale. Now, this again is the happy path. If there's something wrong with the API, this is going to throw an exception. And right now we're not catching that exception. For right now, we're not going to worry about it, but very soon we need to put some good exception handling into this application. What do you do when you can't check out, or when this happens or that happens? So whenever we rely on the API or anything external, especially where we can't control the circumstances, then we have to make sure that we handle unexpected circumstances or less than ideal circumstances. But for right now, that's not what we're doing today. We're going to set up better logging and exception handling in a future video. So let's try this out and let's see how it works. Now remember, you haven't reset the selected cart item. We just did the list itself to see if that's going to be enough. All right, so let's add 2 skillets to the cart and a fluffy bath towel. And we're going to hit check out. Now the cart hasn't been cleared, which is interesting. These values, of course, haven't been updated because there's nothing set up here. But yet the skillet now has a quantity of 10. The fluffy bath towel has a quantity of 20. So we didn't do it. We didn't get it right. Let's find out why. Okay, so we can close out of this code, and we need to track down what is our code doing incorrectly. And I have a theory, and you probably should be yelling at me. So I reset, the first thing I did, and this is the one that isn't working, is I set this underscore cart value to a new binding list of cart display item, essentially overwriting the list that's there. However, I use the private backing field that you should never use. Instead of using the set portion of the property on cart. And the difference is that it will assign to cart, but it will also trigger the notify of property change for cart itself. Let's change that. Cart equals new binding list instead of underscore cart. Let's try this again. Now, it should have written to the database just fine. We can check that if you want to, but that's not really the issue here. The issue is that we haven't visually updated. So let's add 2 bath towels this time. And we're going to hit checkout. And let's select one first. Let's check out. Now, it reset this list, 10 and 20, because we haven't updated our inventory, so it automatically updates. It cleared out the cart. It disabled the remove from cart, and the add to cart is not enabled either because there's nothing selected. So that's so far so good, but the subtotal, tax, and total have not changed. That's a problem. Let's find out how to fix that. My guess is that we haven't called the notify of property change, and we need to. So let's go to add to cart. When we add something to cart, we trigger these notify of property changes. When we remove from cart, we trigger these as far as changes. So we have subtotal, tax, total, can check out, subtotal, tax, total, can check out, and can add to cart. All of them. Let's do this. Let's copy. I don't think we need to have the can add to cart because it's going to refresh that list. We need to have at least these 3 because these 3 aren't being triggered. But the can check out probably should be as well. So let's copy that and come back up to our method, which is right here. Once we load the products, then let's trigger it. I like to do the notify of property change last, even if I don't have to, because it just, if you do it last all the time, that's your habit, then you don't make silly mistakes, which I have done. So for example, up here, the selected product equals value, I have put this line, and I may have done it even in this series, where I put this line, the notify of property change, before I actually change the property, and then wonder why that notify of property change isn't working. The reason why is because it is working, it's just notifying of the previous change, which was nothing. So I always put them last, that way it's notifying as the last thing it's doing so that all the changes have been committed. Let's run this one more time. And this time we're going to add something different besides the skillet and the fluffy bath towel. Let's add the other 2 just to have something different. Home repair kit, large toaster oven, a couple of them, and check out. Notice the checkout. Let's select everything. So now all of our buttons are highlighted or available to be clicked. Let's click checkout. You can't check out. The subtotal, tax, and total is 0. You can't remove from cart, and you can't add to cart because nothing is selected. So we're all good. We were set back to start. Okay, so that takes care of that issue. Next issue on my list of things to fix. If we go to the shell view, we have this cool menu up here that does nothing. In fact, the file header has nothing in it. Let's change that. Let's put an exit in. So we're going to do a menu item. Let's just copy this functionality. And the name is going to be exit application. And instead of underscore login, we're going to have e_xit. And what that does is it will highlight the X for the Alt. So if I hit the Alt key when I'm in Visual Studio, notice it's hard to see, but there's an underline under F. If I hit F now, drops down the File menu. Notice there's an underscore under X. If I were to hit X, it would close out of Visual Studio. That's the common key binding for closing out of applications, and it has been since early Windows days. So Alt FX gets you out of an application. So that's what will happen in our application as well. So we need an exit application method, which we should always be able to do. So let's go to our shell view model, and we're going to have a method, public void exit application. And this is going to do one thing. It's going to close out of our application. Now, I always forget which command to use. It's close or it's exit. Exit application. It's changed over the years, and depending on if you use VB.NET or C#, that's changed as well. And if it's WinForms or other. But I think that should do it. Let's find out. And that should be enabled even if you're not logged in. So file, exit, closes out of our application. No, it doesn't. It just crashes it. Excellent. Let's find out why. View the details. And the details of this are Stack Overflow exception. Awesome. It's not what you want to see when you try to exit an application. So let's try again. I have heard that try close is available, and that's part of screen. So try close like that. What it's going to do is try to close the application, and if it fails, it won't blow up like that one just did. Let's give that a shot instead and see if that might work better. So file, exit, and our application is closed. Now, it's still running in Visual Studio because I have the API open as well, but our WPF application closed. So that takes care of wiring up that menu item, which is kind of cool. But we have another one, which is under the account menu. We have login, which doesn't really make sense because if we're logged out, we should only ever be on the login screen. But we should have a log out method that allows us to close out of whatever we're in and log off the application so that the next person can log in instead of just exiting the application and then starting over. So let's do that. Let's create a log out. And we're going to say log out like so. And for this, we need to create a method over here. Public void logout. And then inside of here, what we need to do is we need to reset our login credentials, wipe them out, and then we need to close out of everything and activate this login view model. Now let's first look at what happens when we log in. So we log in, we call this, and where is it? It's actually down our library, the API helper. We call the API helper, and when we authenticate, when we get the logged in user info, then what it does is it grabs the information about the user and it populates the logged in user model, which if you remember in our bootstrapper here, the logged in user model, which is right here, that's a singleton, meaning we carry that throughout the application. We don't give a new instance per logged in user. We carry that same one throughout the entire application so that once I'm logged in, it has my information. I don't have to log in for every single call. But when we log off, we want to clear that out. We can't just do a or we shouldn't just do a reset of that singleton. We shouldn't just clear it out. Instead, what we'll do is let's look at this right here, and we're going to create a method here. Now, I'm not typically a fan of using a method on an object like this, on a model, because of the fact that it introduces business logic or some kind of logic into your model, and now you have to mock it. Because now you have to, and not the haha, making fun of you, but when you're talking about unit testing, you need to make sure that that logic that you now put in your model works correctly. And I could add to this in some way, but I'm going to, for both simplicity's sake and also because that's a pretty standard practice, I'm going to put one method in here. And it's going to be a public void, and it's going to be clear or log off user. And what this will do is it will reset all my information. So token equals empty string, ID equals empty string, first name equals empty string, last name equals empty string, email address equals empty string, and create a date. I'm going to say date time dot probably min value. Let's call it that. I don't want to leave it as is because I don't want data to flow between users. And so a logged off user could somehow have access to when a user's information was created. It's not really a data breach, but at the same time, I don't want them to have that. So let's just add this. Now I am going to add this as well to my interface so that I can use it in my dependency injection system. Now this is used in the dependency injection system, which means it is quite easy then to mock it and replace it with something else instead. So this is, again, that exception to the rule of models. Typically with models, you don't put it in your dependency injection system either, or have interfaces for it, because you're just using it for data. And therefore, there's no reason that you need to replace it with a different thing that does the exact same thing. But in this case, there are reasons for it, and therefore we have it in our dependency injection system, and we also have just a little bit of code in it. All right, with this being set, now we can do in our shell view model is we can get the logged in user. So we can either get it in the shell view model, which will start off with an empty user, but then once we log in, there'll be something there. Or what we can do is we can get it using the ioc.get. I want to use it up here. So I logged in user model, control dot to add the user sentiment, and say underscore user. Oops, not underscore, just user. And then I'll create the variable up here, private, I'll make this one the underscore, and underscore user equals user. And then down here, what I can do is when you log off, I can say user dot log off user and clear that user out. And then I can set the active item to the login view model. So reset everything and log them off. Let's try this out and make sure I haven't missed any logic, which is entirely possible that I have. So the first thing I need to do is I need to log in. Otherwise, we can't log off. So now I'm logged in. If I go to log out, I'm back to my login screen. So it's cleared everything out, and I'm back to the login screen. Now notice I still have account log out, even though I'm on the login form, which I can technically click that, but it's just frustrating because it looks like nothing's happening, even though something is. So what do I do about that? Well, that's where we can look at the value of our user information. So we have this user. So what we can do is we can set the visible property up here for a menu item to be if the user's logged in. Now we've done this before, and we've done it in the login view. If we look in here for this error message, which isn't being shown right now, we have the visibility. And we have that converter because we're converting a static resource to from Boolean to visibility. So let's copy this entire thing. So copy that entire from visibility section. And now I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to apply it to my menu item. And so it's not going to be visible, but not is error visible. It's going to be is account visible. So let's grab this, and this is going to need to return a Boolean. So public bool is account visible. And in here, we need to return yes, it's visible, or no, it's not. And actually, I believe we might have to use a property. Let's go over here and look in the login. Is error visible? Yes, it's a property. And so what we did here is we set up just a getter for our property. So let's actually copy this so we have a pattern to follow. And I'm going to just change the name. Now I have my is account visible, but none of the code is correct, or at least not this part of the code. So instead of error message length is greater than 0, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the user dot, and I can look at the token, I can look at the first name. I think I'm going to look at the token because that's the most guaranteed. In theory, your user doesn't have to have a first name or a last name. Now the reality is they should. But in theory, they might have said no first name, and so it's just empty. So you don't want to check for that. And they should have an email address, but if you were to change the code and not require it, make it a username instead, then that would be a problem. But the token will always be there. So if the token is not null or empty, so let's do this. Let's say string.is null or white space for the token equals false. Now I could do the bang in front of it, the exclamation point in front of this, but I just find it hides too easily. So if the user token is not null, then go ahead and show the account. That way we only show it when they're logged in. Otherwise, we don't show it. Now, we need to trigger this to be to say the notify of property change whenever we activate something else. So when I log in, notify of property change, and this is the is account visible. So therefore, whenever they log in, we should trigger that. We should also trigger it when they log off. We don't have to trigger it when they exit the application because, hey, they exit the application. Let's try this. Notice I have no account menu here, but if I log in, I now have an account menu. I can log out, and it's gone again. Either way, I can still exit the application. Now I want to change one thing, and that's this name here. I'm going to change this to something different like is logged in. Because that way we're not just checking for that account. We can apply this to a lot of different areas. I'll do my control dot to replace this. Nope, that's not going to do that. So I got to do it manually. It didn't understand correctly what I was trying to do. I probably messed something up there. So is logged in, and I'll change it here as well instead of account visible. So now I can apply it not just to the account menu, but I can also apply it to other menu items that I might have as well. Like if I had multiple different forms I can access, maybe an inventory form or an add user form or whatever other forms I add to this menu, I can just tag all of those with the is logged in binding. Just copy and paste this. And then they will show or hide based upon if the user is logged in. Makes it really generic and easy to use in multiple places, instead of tying it just to their account, should you show the account or not. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. We've done a number of fixes. Let's go ahead and stage these. Now we have it staged. Let's give it a name. I'm going to give it a horrible commit name of bug fixes. All right, and I'm going to stage that and push it. I'll do it all at once because I know that there's nothing in my remote repository that I haven't pulled down yet. Now I'm done. Okay, so that's it for kind of our debugging process and cleaning up some of those nagging issues that have been left for later. We've got those cleaned up. We still need to get into exception handling, logging, maybe some unit testing. And then we also need to look at, now that we have this cart done, we need to look at moving towards a web interface as well. Now, some of you have asked about the cart itself, and you're saying, well, this is it's a simple cart that will work for simple cases, but what if I have a large inventory? Or what if I want to find something quickly, like a barcode reader? And that's something we can add, and that's something that I want to add, but it's not something that is critical for the minimum viable product of our application. So when we get to that, depends on when we can fit it in. But really, if we look at our sale view right now, instead of having this list here, we could just have a box that is, and actually none of this would be here except for the remove from cart, but we have a box here that's just ready for a barcode scanner to read something in. And once it puts something in the box, then it would find that item and add it to the cart. So it's not a big change to make that work, and it's something that actually makes our form simpler. So at some point we'll do that. And if you're not sure how barcode readers work, they're actually just a keyboard, is essentially what they are. And they send a number of keys all at once in order to your computer. So you can buy them online, they're pretty cheap. You can buy them on eBay and just plug them in USB. So we're not going to actually have a barcode reader, but we could simulate one fairly easily. And by doing so, we could make our cart work more like what you'd find in a store. Okay, so that is coming at some point down the road, but I do want to get an MVC application up and running with something in it, some kind of, I'm thinking probably the inventory management and user management portions, which will allow us to do things like limit which users can modify or add users, so that we have that not only authentication, but also checking to see, now that you're authenticated, do you have this permission in order to do this task? Because once we have the MVC set up and running, then we can start looking into migration over at .NET Core. And that's kind of the big goal of this application, is to have a real application or a simulation of a real application with a lot of moving parts that is in the .NET framework. Because that's what you'll find in the industry a lot. But that's not where the industry will stay. And so coming up, and even right now, a lot of companies are going through the process of moving from .NET Framework to .NET Core and that migration path. And others are just thinking about it. And so I wanted to do something where you can see a real world how would I do this, so that you can then go to companies and say, I can do this, or you can go to your boss and say, let's start this process. Here's the plan, the roadmap for how you want to do that. So that's kind of the big overarching goal for the TimCo Retail Manager system. But beyond that, I do want to show off more pieces and even get to things like microservices and iOS and Android apps with Xamarin. So we'll get there, but for right now, I think we're done for today. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. And as always, I am Tim Corey.